The shuttle pierced Earth's upper atmosphere with a quiet, controlled descent. From the observation deck, Cadet Viral kept his compound eyes fixed on the swelling blue sphere below. To his left, Cadet Sulan traced the curve of the Pacific Ocean with a soft hum, her thoughts blooming across their shared neural link, an excitement tempered by curiosity. Neither had ever seen a planet with such biological violence preserved in so much beauty. They arrived as part of the Zolari Dominion's first cultural immersion program with Earth, a planet that until recently had been regarded by galactic civilizations as too volatile, too young in its evolution of peace. Yet Earth's leap into interstellar diplomacy had surprised many. When it volunteered to share its military history without filters, the Galactic Council paused, then approved. Transparency, after all, was the first pillar of trust. The cadets, 50 in total, were selected not just for their academic brilliance, but for their composure. They had studied theoretical conflict, read simulations of human aggression, even meditated on the curious concept of warrior honor. But simulations, Viral thought as they approached the landing site, were polite illusions. Earth promised raw truth. They disembarked onto a sea-cooled tarmac where heat shimmered above concrete and two-legged guards stood in rows, weapons slung across chests. One stepped forward, a tall human male with a scar running from temple to jaw. "Commander Holt," he said, "welcome to Earth. I'll be your instructor for the seminar." His voice was low, composed, but carried something primal. The cadets exchanged a brief collective scan. His neural patterns throbbed like a predator's heartbeat, yet his aura pulsed calm. It was confusing. Inside the United Nations Earth Galactic Orientation Hub, the cadets were escorted through gleaming corridors and past cultural archives to a theater-sized hall. A circular screen hung like a moon above the seats. The walls bore nothing but a plaque, in memory of those who chose to walk through fire. Viral took a seat beside Salon. Their neural chatter narrowed to whispers. "He's a veteran," she murmured. "Of what?" Viral asked, though he already knew. Commander Holt stepped to the center of the hall. The light dimmed. "What you're about to see," he said, "is human history through the eyes of its soldiers. We make no apologies for it, but neither do we glorify it. This is who we were, and in many ways still are." The screen bloomed to life. At first, the cadets observed with clinical detachment. Archival footage of strategy rooms, maps sprawled with red lines, troops boarding aircraft under gray dawns. Voices barked commands in clipped English. A war not of anger, but preparation. Then came the training. Bodies crawled through mud, their breath ragged. Men carried logs heavier than themselves across beaches, while surf crashed against their legs. Screams echoed, not of injury, but of exhaustion, mental collapse, grit. Holt's voice narrated calmly. "This is BUD/S, the training program for Earth's Navy SEALs. Only a fraction finish. Those who do, enter battle prepared to die." The cadets began to shift in their seats. One twitched as a soldier fell mid-run and was screamed back to his feet. Sulan's fingers tightened against the edge of her chair. "What purpose does this serve?" someone sent across the neural field. "To sharpen will?" another guessed. "Or to erode identity?" The footage grew more brutal. Explosions swallowed fields. Screams, real now, not training. A soldier dragged another through blood and sand. Drones buzzed above ruins. A child cried in a mother's arms while soldiers shouted into radios, frantic. The room was silent, but for the sound of battle and the occasional sharp breath of a cadet failing to maintain equilibrium. Sulan's aura dimmed. "This is too much," she whispered aloud. Viral felt his own bioluminescence flicker erratically. His heart, a redundant organ in most Solari, raced. He saw human eyes through helmet visors, wide, wet, unblinking. Some of the footage was from body cams. The soldiers were narrating their last moments without knowing it. He turned toward Holt, who watched the screen with arms crossed. The human didn't flinch. Not once. And that, Viral realized, was the most disturbing part. At minute 42, one of the cadets stood. His name was Iroha. He was the youngest and among the most empathetic. "This is obscene," he said. Not telepathically, verbally, his voice brittle. This is not education. This is trauma. Holt did not reply. Iroha walked out. A second followed. Then a third. By the end of the screening, 25 seats sat empty. Commander Holt finally spoke. They have chosen to withdraw from the program.
No shame in that.
Earth's history is not for every soul. But for those who remain, we continue tomorrow. As the lights returned, Viral stared at the floor. What are we trying to understand here? Sulan asked. He didn't answer. He wasn't sure. But as he rose from his seat, he realized something vital. This was not a war story. It was a species scream. And he was not yet ready to stop listening. Rain lashed the concrete courtyard outside the training facility the next morning, as if Earth itself were trying to wash away the impressions of the previous day. The remaining 25 Zalari cadets filed into the seminar hall with a subdued air. No one spoke aloud, and their neural links, once vibrant with curious chatter, were muted, cautious, raw. The silence between them said everything. Half of their cohort had left, not in disagreement, but in retreat. Viral took his seat near the back this time. No longer confident, he wanted to be seen. Beside him, Sulan sat with her legs coiled beneath her, her bioluminescence pale and dull. Her neural aura trembled faintly. He reached out, not with words, but with a steady pulse of presence. She accepted it, briefly. Commander Holt stood at the front again, hands behind his back. His uniform was the same, dark and pressed, but there was something different in his face. Less impassive now. Less a wall. More a door not yet opened. No training today, he said. You've seen what we put our soldiers through. Now, you'll see what they become. The screen came alive with a flicker and snapped into a battlefield. Not a simulation. Not training. The footage was real, harsh, and unstaged. The first image, a platoon pinned behind concrete rubble in a war-torn city. Bullets slammed into their cover with mechanical cruelty. Screams and foreign shouting layered over garbled radio calls. A soldier, face streaked with grime and sweat, rushed out to drag a wounded comrade back under cover. He was shot once. Then again.
Still he dragged.
Sulan inhaled sharply. Viral couldn't look away. This was Operation Daggerfall, Holt said, his voice low. Urban warfare. Close quarters. No safe zone. Every corner might hold death. The soldier on the screen survived. Barely. His leg would never work again. His friend lived. The cadets watched the medevac chopper rise above the burning skyline, its blades cutting through smoke like a symbol of some defiant will. You consider this noble? A cadet near the front asked. Her name was Kira. She hadn't spoken much since the screening. I don't tell you what to consider, Holt replied. I show you what was. The footage changed again. Jungle warfare. Then snowy mountains. Then desert sands. Different wars. Same eyes. The soldiers' faces changed, but not their expression. Tight jaws, hollow resolve. The look of those who'd already made peace with their end. Sulan leaned closer to Viral. How do they keep choosing to go back? Viral's neural link trembled. Because they believe it matters. And it did. That was the terrifying part. These weren't random acts of brutality. The violence had direction, purpose, even sacrifice. One clip showed a team clearing a village under threat of bombing. They were supposed to mark it for destruction. Instead, they disobeyed orders, entered it, and evacuated every civilian by hand, one screaming child at a time. 2 of the soldiers didn't make it out. The footage ended on the image of a folded flag being handed to a woman clutching a child. The woman's face was blank, but her eyes had the same look Viral had seen on every soldier, enduring pain without letting it consume. The screen went dark. A long silence followed. Holt didn't break it. Then Sulan stood. Slowly, deliberately. We came here to understand humans, she said, her voice clear. And now I think we are starting to. You are not violent because you love destruction. You are violent because you love what you protect. Holt's gaze settled on her. That's closer to the truth than most of us ever admit. Kira turned to Sulan, her tone still incredulous. And that justifies this? She gestured toward the screen with a flick of her tendril-thin hand. This carnage? This systemic death? Sulan didn't answer immediately. Her glow deepened, like warm metal under strain. It doesn't justify it, but it explains it. And explanations matter. Another cadet rose, then another. Some looked defiant. Some looked broken. One had tears along the edges of his compound vision. But none left.
Not this time.
Commander Holt walked forward slowly, closer to the cluster of cadets. His steps echoed softly. I didn't show you these things to win your respect. I showed them to make you decide if peace is something you still believe in once you know what's required to defend it. Viral stood too. The decision formed in his chest before it reached his mind. I think, he said carefully, that I feared humans because I thought you were irrationally destructive. But now I fear you for the opposite reason. Holt's brow lifted slightly. Explain. Because you're consciously willing to become monsters to protect others. And that makes us something worse, Holt finished. No, Viral said. It makes you something we weren't prepared to understand. A hush fell over the hall again, but this time it was contemplative. Not stunned. Not afraid. Commander Holt nodded slowly. We continue tomorrow with veterans' testimonies. They'll answer your questions. Unfiltered. A low murmur passed through the cadets, not dissent, but anticipation. Outside, the storm had passed. Rain still clung to the edges of the window glass, but sunlight now cracked through the gray. Viral watched it bead and scatter, forming rivulets down the walls. The water moved forward. Always forward. He turned to Sulan, who looked both older and steadier now, as if something inside her had realigned. We'll stay, she said simply. Viral didn't nod. He didn't need to. They both knew. And tomorrow, they would ask harder questions. The auditorium had changed. It wasn't the lighting or the arrangement of chairs. Those remained sterile, precise. But something unspoken clung to the air now, as though the room itself had inhaled the cadets' shifting perceptions and refused to exhale. They filed in quieter than before, not out of fear, but reverence. For Earth, for its history, and for the humans who had survived it. Commander Holt stood near the dais, but not alone this time. 4 human veterans sat in a semicircle behind him, each with a presence that radiated a quiet weight. They were dressed plainly. No medals. No ranks. Just lived experience pressed into every wrinkle, every posture, every glance. This is the final phase, Holt said, voice steady. Ask them what you want. Nothing is off limits. The cadets hesitated. Even Viral, who had long since overcome his initial discomfort, found himself calculating how best to begin. It was Sulan who broke the silence. She addressed the first veteran, a woman with streaks of silver in her buzz-cut hair and eyes that had seen fire. What did it cost you? Sulan asked. Not in blood. In identity. The woman smiled faintly, but it wasn't amusement. It was the kind of smile used to steady someone before bad news. Everything, she said. It took the version of me that laughed easily, that trusted quickly, that slept without locking the door twice. I came home, but parts of me didn't. A ripple of emotion passed through the cadet's neural field. Grief, astonishment, respect. None of it pity. That emotion had been burned out of them long ago. Another cadet stepped forward. It was Kira, her initial skepticism now sharpened into determined inquiry. Do you regret it? A man with a prosthetic arm leaned forward.
Yes.
Every day. And also no. Every day. The contradiction hung heavy. Kira tilted her head, urging clarity. If you regret it, she said, why not walk away from it? Condemn it. Because I got to see a child survive, he replied, his voice low. And I got to carry a friend's body home, so his mother didn't have to wonder where he fell. It was horror. But I was there when horror needed a name. That matters. Silence again. But now it was reverent. Viral moved forward, his voice calm but urgent. You speak of sacrifice as though it is both the burden and the meaning. But how do you reconcile that with peace? A third veteran, a younger man whose gaze drifted off into unseen distances, spoke next. Because peace isn't just the absence of war. It's the presence of people willing to prevent it. That's what soldiers are. Not weapons. Boundaries. That phrase, not weapons, boundaries, echoed within Viral. It reframed everything. These humans, brutal and scarred, weren't simply tools of violence. They were guardians of a fragile stillness, even when it broke them. Sulan sent him a silent thought. They aren't what we expected. He responded, no. There's something far more difficult to understand. The final veteran hadn't spoken yet. She was older than the others, her voice soft from disuse or restraint. You've all asked what we gave, she said. But not one of you has asked what we gained. That shifted the room. Heads turned. Cadets leaned in. What did you gain? Asked Viral. She looked around and, for the first time, smiled fully. Perspective. Purpose. The knowledge that when fear came, I ran toward it. That when someone screamed, I was there. I don't live in war anymore. But I live with it. And that makes every peaceful morning more valuable than gold. The cadets processed this with silent pulses of cognition. No one withdrew. No one dissented. Then Commander Holt stepped forward. You came here to understand us. You've seen our worst. You've met our best. What you do with that knowledge defines not us, but you. He turned to leave, then paused. We did not evolve past violence. We learned to carry it differently. The veterans stood and left in silence. No farewell. No ceremony. Just presence, and then absence. Outside the auditorium, Earth's sky had cleared fully, blue stretching in every direction like possibility. The cadets walked the grounds in small clusters. Some spoke, others didn't. But the collective field buzzed, not with distress, but synthesis. Kira approached Sulan and Viral under the shade of a human tree, its leaves trembling gently. I think I finally understand the terror, she said. Not that humans are violent, but that they're willing to suffer endlessly for others. Viral nodded. And that some even choose it. Sulan looked up at the sky, where distant satellites traced faint arcs. We came to observe, she said. But we leave changed. Not by what they endured, but by what they chose to endure. Far above them, a new shuttle descended, bringing the next rotation of cadets. Viral watched its silver hull slice the clouds. He wondered how many would stay, how many would leave, how many would understand. But for him, and for those who remained, one truth had crystallized. Peace was not a gift. It was a price paid in advance. And now, they carried the receipt.